If a return to the gold standard and not demonstrating his skill against the K-winner was his primary goal, do you think the K-winner was a cover for setting up catastrophic inflation?
I think, well, if you look at what Greenspan wanted to do and what he did, he has printed his way pretty much his whole stint as the Federal Reserve Chairman. And, he also had a lot of say during the 70s as the head of the CEA. Can he print his way through the whole winter of the long view cycle? I don't think so. I mean, right now where we are is, we should be in the winter of the long cycle. We aren't. We're kind of hovering there and papering our way over it. But when it comes, you can just put it off for so long. When it comes, it's going to hit hard. It's like sitting there on the beach in your bikini and all of a sudden it's 40 below and snowing. That's the kind of, sharp jolt it will be. So, it's interesting. I used to look a lot at economic theories and, say, because if we keep printing money, then this will happen. And if we don't cut back on spending, then this will happen. And then once you understand that behind the scenes there is a little man pulling all the levers, and you get a little more jaded as to what is a real cycle, and are these cycles, man-made? Are they being manipulated from behind the scenes? And I agree. I think that if they are trying to manipulate it, it will inevitably distort how the seasons look. And I can't see how that wouldn't happen, especially with the kind of money, the percentage of money they're printing. Yeah, it's interesting to see them try to explain away why things that were supposed to happen have not happened.
I have a theory. Actually, you answered one of my follow-up questions in your answer, so that was great. I have a theory that we entered the K-winner at the beginning of, the beginning of the K-winner was Greenspan's irrational exuberance speech, and that it's basically ending now, which would correlate to all this liquidity letting loose in the spring. But I don't know if that makes any sense to you, or if you think that that's valid. I wasn't going to ask that, but you seem to have led right there. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, I don't know. What I see coming is more of a total derivative collapse, banking collapse, fiat money collapse. A lot of people saying, it would take longer. And it might. I see a collapse over the next 6 to 8 months, and then before we kind of hit the bottom, and then trudge along the bottom for a while until life starts to spring somewhere else, and we get our act together a little. I hope it doesn't take that long, because it will be painful.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. I have another question for you about the Road to Ruta and the comic book. Do you think there is sufficient evidence without the Fed comic book tell that the main players of the Fed are actually seeking a fiscal reboot into a metal standard? I'm looking at it as if the comic is a strong lead, like a detective would use, but insubmittable to the public court. Is there sufficient evidence outside the comic to support the theory that the comic indicates?
I do think there's, you mean coming from the Federal Reserve?
Yeah, or from other statements, from reports.
Well, yeah, there is
articles, from whatever.
Yeah, there's. I mean, first of all, if you look at all the GATA evidence of manipulation, that's that comes to the pretty obvious side that gold and silver are manipulated. As far as the Road to Ruta theory, you have the introduction of the almost introduction of the new $100 bill, which is littered with gold and talk of overthrowing your government. You've got the opening of the San Francisco Mint to mint coins. It was supposed to be a historical retrofit, but they put brand new computer-controlled coining machines in there, and they're ready to go. They delayed that for 2 years. You got Feinstein and Pelosi were at the opening of that. There's a lot of signs around that the U.S. is ready once the crash happens. The only question left is, when is it going to happen? They tried to do it in 87, they tried to do it in 2008, and they're going to try to do it, this year or next. Can they do it? Can they take these bankers out once and for all? I think they can. I think the new Dodd-Frank regulations will handcuff the banks in squeezing their way out. But we'll see. I mean, it's obvious that it's kind of, the snowball has started rolling downhill, and it should be a crazy summer and into the winter. So, hopefully, if they're not ready, if the Federal Reserve and the Treasury are not ready for this, then, and I'm wrong, then we're in deep trouble. And we won't be able to get out of it.
We're probably in deep trouble either way, but.
Well, true, but, if I'm right, they have been planning this. There is a system ready to be put in place, or probably just go back to the Constitution, because we did have a good system, and if we just went back to the Constitution like Ron Paul is saying, then yeah, we could start fresh fairly easily, whereas other countries who don't have the same kind of, history might have a little harder time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one. Do you think that the U.S. government will end up nationalizing the domestic gold and silver mines?
It's an excellent question, and I've run around time and time again thinking about that. As far as the foreign ownership of mines, yes, I do think that if you owned foreign mining stock, that when the crash happens, all those no one would let a foreigner own what they're going to use as money. So I do think foreign mining companies will, if not nationalized, will only be kind of owned by local citizens of that country. So I don't believe in investing in foreign mining companies, even though the leverage is there. Now, as far as domestic, it's a toss-up, and I know that there is talk of nationalizing a large portion of the United States, from Montana down to Arizona, and because that's where a lot of the gold and silver mines are. But whether or not, I think it all depends on how bad the crash is and how angry people are at the rich, so to speak. Because if they're not nationalized, you're going to see the owners of gold and silver mines being ultra rich, whereas the majority of the population will be ultra poor. And that usually does not fly well in any society. So, the possibility of nationalization would be high in the kind of collapse that I think is coming. So, the short answer is I don't know. Ron Paul gave a speech a while back where he kind of hinted, he used to own mining companies. He kind of hinted that you first and foremost want to own physical gold. And I took that as, because he's in the know of, kind of where they're leaning on the good guy's side. So I think nobody knows. So if you own a mining company, I think it's at risk. But the other thing is not necessarily the nationalization of the mine, but all the counterparties between you and your mine. I mean, you've got your brokerage house, you got the DTCC, you've got all those naked shorts out there who all claim to be owners of that mine. It might be a legal quagmire to figure out, who actually does own this mine, they might just say, hey, we really don't know how many shares are out there, so, we don't know who owns this thing. We're going to nationalize it and just give it to the people.
Okay. Follow-up question is, do you feel that the plans are actually in place for what we just discussed?
There was an article that I posted on my website a while back that there was a nationalization plan given to Obama of mines and natural resources in the United States if the crash happens or when the crash happens. Yes, I do. I believe they have a lot of plans for a lot of different scenarios. And some are good and some are bad. If the bad guys take over after the crash, then, we're all pretty much screwed.
Regarding confiscation and storage, would you recommend possibly, if you have the whereabouts and the facilities, to store actual physical metals outside of the country?
No, to me, that makes no sense at all. Because when the crash happens, every country is going to have to look out for themselves. And the theory that if you keep metal, if you're a U.S. citizen, you keep metal in Switzerland because Switzerland has, a more, stronger laws about property rights than the U.S. who, have confiscated metal in the past. I think all those rules and laws will go right out the window with the type of crash that I see coming, which is a total, complete collapse of all debt and all assets on the electronic side and held by banks and mutual funds and things like that. So, to think that you're better off having another country hold your metal, I don't see that.
Okay. Are you storing food and water?
Yes. And Cliff High probably got me started on it, but there's also in the Road to Ruta theory there's a transition period. And, if you take away currency, you pretty much stop everything. And, the transportation of goods and services, we're going to have to hunker down for a while all this sorts out. So, yes, I am. I'm growing, trying to grow. My green thumb is not so green, but I'm trying to grow some vegetables and, I'm trying to be more self-sufficient such that if things fall apart in a quick manner, I will be ready to take care of myself and my family and my, as many friends as I can take care of. And I think that's a smart thing to do for anyone.
We agree. And thank you very much.
Sure.
This is Diane B again. I've got a question here from Fox. Could you please elaborate? You were speaking a wee while ago about the new US $100 bill. Could you elaborate on the significance and the hidden meanings in the new $100 bill? You think it's a precursor to return of the gold standard, correct?
Yes. If you look at the $100 bill, the $100 bill is the most counterfeited currency in the world by far. They call it a super note. There are counterfeit factories around the world that are kicking out $100 bills. And you might find it interesting that, when the United States started, redoing their bills to thwart off the counterfeiters, they started with like the 20 and the 5